And we are back. Welcome to Credit Versio's Q&A Live Wednesday for June 7th, 2023. I'm your host, David Michalek. Thanks for being here. And we got a handful of people jumping on already. Hey, Sean, good to see you. Thanks for being here. And we're going to go over, well, first of all, we're going to answer all your questions today. And we'll get started with that as soon as anybody wants to post a question. I'm here to answer those for you. And at the same time, I'm going to walk you through the Credit Versio round one. I've got that all primed up, ready to go. And I'm going to answer some of the popular questions that I got this week. But more importantly, I want to answer whatever questions you have about credit, credit scores, credit reports, how everything works, Credit Versio. If you're stuck, have questions, that's what I'm here for. Susan, welcome. Good to see you. All right, let's get rolling. What do we got here? Coming up on about a dozen or so people watching, people jumping on. Thank you so much. Don't be shy. Take a second, say hello, introduce yourself, let me know where you're coming from, particularly if this is your first time watching a live. So we keep the lives pretty light. What I like to do is I usually come in with a topic that I want to go over. Usually it has something to do with using Credit Versio or maybe some of the top questions I got for the week and answer those. But we can go on any subject that you like. Okay, let's start. I'm going to bring us over to, bear with me here, let me switch over. There we are. Now we're looking at Credit Versio. Let me get rid of some of these. That's not what I wanted to do. Hold on here. Let's scroll down. There we are. Perfect. All right, now we are looking at the Credit Versio homepage. Unless you are not a current user of Credit Versio, this is going to look very, very familiar to you. Mike, good to see you. Top of the evening, Tarpon Springs, Florida, Tampa. Oh boy. I was talking to a guy today, a new partner of ours, and he's like, so what's that you're wearing, David? You got a Golden Knights cap on? I said, I certainly do. I'm a Vegas guy, and I moved here the inaugural year of the Knights, so I'm a big fan. And I love the team, and so we had a couple of words to exchange about our respective teams today. It was fun. Let's see. Susan's got a question. Do the dispute remarks stay on until I remove them, or they apply to all? Let me move that for you a little bit so I can see. To all accounts disputed. I'm assuming what you mean by dispute remarks. Are you talking about the remarks that are left on the credit report? Is that what you're asking me? So you have the ability when you are disputing something, if you don't agree with the outcome, you have the opportunity to leave a remark on there. I forgot how many characters you can leave, but I mean, you can put a good couple of sentences down there if you want. Now, nobody is really going to read these. It's not a Metro 2 field, so it's not going to be scored. But if you wanted to, contribute your 2 cents, they'll certainly allow you to do that, and they will stay there for the duration of the account. So eventually, when it drops off, of course, the comments drop off with it. And Susan, if that's not the question that you're asking me, then just clarify. I'd be more than happy to cover that for you. Okay, so we're going into Credit Versio round one. There's a couple of things I want you to notice. And by the way, this is, I think, our second, actually, I think it's our third. We played around with the user interface quite a bit. And a couple years ago, we finally settled on this interface. And the biggest change was right here, was the dispute plan. And the reason why we created this dispute plan, we had all kinds of ideas of how we were going to present it. But this turned out to be like the cleanest, easiest way to understand, which is it's just going to tell you exactly what you've got to do. It's going to give you the timeline at the top. So in this example, I'm using my staging account because it's all set up to do a demonstration. Can't really log into somebody's live account and start showing you their credit report and their accounts and everything like that. I'd love to, but I might get in trouble for that. So let's take a look. Oh, Susan responded here. The remarks that the creditor inserts within 30 days. I think, yeah, the only remarks that that I'm aware of that go into the account is the fact that the account is in dispute, or the account was settled for less than the agreed amount, or I mean those remarks will stay there for, apart from the dispute, reference to the dispute, those remarks will stay there probably the entire time. Let me know what your concern is, because let's go back to what the source of the question is. What is it about the remarks that are concerning to you? What does it say that concerns you? And we can go from there. So going back to the home page, one of the most important things on here, maybe the most important thing, is how the software is going to guide you through the process. So it's telling you exactly what you need to do, when you need to do it. And what happens a lot of times, enough to where we get emails about it, we get questions about it, is people forget that, well, let me put my cursor on here so you can see what I'm pointing at. They'll get in there, they got 40 days, and that gives you plenty of time to create your letters, drop them in the mail, plenty of time for those letters to make it over to the bureaus. That's why we do 40 days and not 30 days. The bureaus and the data furnishers have a full 30 days to do an investigation and also to reply to your letters. Now, most of the time, it doesn't take them that long. It can take them as fast as 7 days. It can take them as long as 30. But we still have it set as a default at 40 days to give you that 10 days to, and this happens quite a bit where somebody will sign up on a Wednesday and they're like, hey, this is really cool. I just want to make sure, I just wanted to see it. It looks great. I want to really focus on this when I am not at work. And so it's Saturday, and now they're doing their disputes. They drop them in the mail on Sunday, no mail on Sunday. So they finally hit the mail on a Monday. So now we've got, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now we've got 7 days that have passed. So this is why we have that 10-day buffer. This is not an uncommon thing. And then you got to account for a couple of days that it's going to take the letters to travel through the mail. Bureaus are going to process it. And then that's when that 30 days starts. So that's why, if people ever ask us, why is it a 40-day timeline when disputes can be settled a lot faster? That's why. We want to give everybody that time. So if you're really on top of it, which a lot of people are, you set up your account, you do your round one dispute that day, or your round two, whatever round you're in right now, and you do your disputes, you print out your letters, you drop them in the mail, good on you. That's fantastic. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to have a little bit more of a waiting game, and that's it. All right, so let's go back. Okay. And then the first thing we're doing is looking at what is the action? What does the dispute plan say we need to do? In this case, it's create a dispute letter. When does this need to be sent by? So it'll tell you, it'll already factor that buffer period and when it's got to be dropped in the mail. Now, this is, of course, my staging area, and I haven't changed the dates. No real reason to. I know it seems a little weird that we're talking about October 2022, but in other words, it would be, if it was today, it would be about 7 days from today. It puts that time out to send letter by about 7 days from the time that you open your account. All right, so first we're going to start off with TransUnion. Credit Versio is by default going to extract, it's going to separate the positive accounts from the negative accounts. Okay, and it does that because, as a general rule, people are going to want to look at the things that are hurting their credit first. Certainly, people dispute information on their credit report that's a positive account. Maybe there's a wrong balance. Maybe account's been paid for a while and still shows a balance paid. Let's see. Susan, I was told the dispute remarks have to be inserted by creditors within 30 days. If not, then you can get them deleted because of the failure of them inserting them. Yeah, maybe that's the case, Susan, but really, I wouldn't waste your time because creditor remarks are not read. Meaning, there was a time, back before what we often refer to now as desktop underwriting or automated underwriting, where if I apply for a credit card or I apply for a car or anything else you can think of except for maybe a home loan or a business loan, all that decision making is done by software for the most part. It's very rare that you're going to have a high level look at the information that's on your credit report because it doesn't need to do that anymore. That's why credit reports exist. That's why scores exist. That's why most creditors have some kind of automated underwriting system that they use to approve or decline applications. And what's used in that approval or the declination of an account is what's on the credit report, what is being measured. And it's usually payment status, it's the balance owed, it's the history of the account. Remarks in the remarks section is not something that's ever read by anybody. Now, that might not have been the case 30, 40, 50 years ago when there was no such thing as automatic underwriting. But those remarks really don't have any, I just wouldn't sweat over it, is what I'm trying to tell you. Is I'm giving you a little bit of functional training on how that stuff works, but at the same time, it's not really something that's gonna matter to you all that much. Really, the most important parts inside of the account itself is payment status. So that's where you're going to see, is the account on time? Is it a collection charge off? Is it included in bankruptcy? Was it a collection? Was it something derogatory? So let's go to the next question. Can lates removed from TransUnion on student loan 1 month later reappear on the next report? It's called a reinsertion. And the answer to that question is yes. If, as a general rule, when things get deleted from credit reports, that's usually a permanent deletion. It means that an investigation has been done by the data furnisher and they've decided to remove the account. That's option number one. Option number two is if the creditor perhaps, or the data furnisher, could be a collection company, which is not a creditor, obviously, or trade line anyway. And sometimes if they don't respond, the bureau can remove the accounts from your credit report. So that's option number two. And when this is done, it's typically done because it falls under one of the four reasons under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that things get removed from credit reports. It's either incomplete, either it's erroneous, I mean it's just wrong, incomplete, unverifiable, and what's the fourth one? It's so funny. I say this a million times a day, and then occasionally I'll forget whatever the fourth one is. But outdated. Excuse me. So erroneous, outdated, incomplete, and unverifiable. So typically it's going to be one of those four. That's the reason why things get removed from credit reports, and none of those are good reasons for keeping anything on a credit report. Meaning, if it's deleted for a reason. Now, when you see a reinsertion, it means that there might have been like a default removal right away, just because the creditor wasn't sure that they'd be able to remove the account in the timeline, that 30-day timeline that they're provided. And then maybe towards the end of that 30 days or the next month, they're able to do that reinvestigation. That's actually the language. And they decide the information is correct, and they put it back on the credit report. Doesn't happen all that much, but it can happen on occasion. Here's what people, when they ask me that question, here's why this is such a prominent thing when people talk about, is this a permanent deletion? Because what happens is they dispute, and this is largely with collections. So they dispute a collection. Let's just say I've got an American Express account and it went into default. It was purchased by Midland Funding, as an example. And then I do a dispute. Midland Funding is not able to comply with the law. It gets deleted. So now the Midland Funding collection that bought that American Express account is now gone. And let's say 2 months later, LVNV buys that debt, and now it shows up again. People will think, oh, it just showed back up on my account again. Well, not really, not in the way that you're referring to it. What happened is a totally different collection company bought that debt, and they're now reporting it. That's the new data furnisher. It doesn't mean that it just popped back on there from Midland Funding just because it got deleted and Midland Funding put it back again. That almost never happens. What happened is it got bought by another company. So that's really what caused a lot of this this concern about, do things just show up back on a credit report? But with trade lines, meaning something that's not a collection, something that's not a public record, so your credit cards, your car loan, mortgage, things like that, usually when those things get removed or repaired, as a general rule, they don't come back. It's not impossible, but as a general rule, they don't. Okay, Versace. I don't know if that's the other way around. If filed bankruptcy and accounts are closed out, will the bureaus delete the accounts? No, they will not. So your credit report is a history of all of your activities. Okay, it's like your scribe. It's been following you for years and years and years, and it's tracking all of your financial decisions as it relates to credit. So if you file bankruptcy, what bankruptcy does is it relieves you of the debt. And the debts of these accounts on your credit report go to zero, but the accounts themselves don't disappear because it's part of your credit history. So those do not, the debt, the balance disappears, but the accounts themselves do not. On Credit Versio, it said that the account was repaired. They stayed off Equifax and Experian, but reinserted in TransUnion. Okay, so they saw a reason why. Now, just make sure it's the same late payment, because when I see people's student loans, it's usually 4, 5, 6, 8, 12 different student loans. And for whatever reason, they looked at the account, decided that it was reporting accurately, and they reinserted it. So the question always comes down to, is it right? Okay, is it correct? This is the one thing that sometimes people forget or don't, want to contemplate, is that really nothing gets deleted from a credit report unless it's not on there correctly or can't be verified. If it really happened, if it's really yours, if it's really late, then there's a possibility that it's going to stay on there. It'll stay on there for the full 7 years. Let's see. Scott, hey, good to see you again. It's been a while. Yeah, I heard recently that medical bills can no longer hit your credit report. Is that true? Yes and no. There's some we have to qualify that a little bit. The answer is that medical collections that are under $500 are not reported anymore. And we just saw a whole wave of those being removed in the last couple of months or so. So that is correct. Now, if it's over $500, yeah, it's going to be there. If it's a paid medical collection, then those will be removed as well. As a general rule, collections that are paid still remain. They're there cosmetically, although all of the contemporary scoring models from FICO and VantageScore, so we're talking about VantageScore 3 and 4, FICO model 8, 9, 10, and 10T, all of those ignore paid collections anyway. So it doesn't matter. If you could have 5 collections, medical or not, and if they're paid, then they're not factored into your score. The downside is that the old scoring model, like the FICO 2, 4, and 5, which is the mortgage FICOs that are mandated by FHFA, those don't care if you paid off the collections or not. If they see a collection on there, they're going to hit you. So apart from buying a home, you're going to be fine. Let's see. Let's close with the peers. Oh, let's see. So Versace, once disputed through Credit Versio. Sorry. Oh, will they be deleted? Who knows? You never know. The decision isn't up to Credit Versio or me or you. Sometimes not even up to the bureaus. It's up to the data furnisher. Now, I will tell you this, and again, this is just my experience. I'm not saying this is going to happen to your dispute, but previous to Credit Versio in the other company I worked for, I would say that one of my favorite accounts to work on were people who filed bankruptcy for a couple of reasons. One is, as a general rule, accounts included in bankruptcy, a high percentage of those were deleted, largely because the data furnisher, whoever the creditor was, really didn't want to respond to a dispute. I mean, they just got handed their hat and asked to leave. They didn't get paid. And this isn't making any kind of a judgment. Bankruptcy is there for a reason. And if people need to, hit that reset button to get out from underneath debt for whatever reason, then that's fine. I don't have no problem with that whatsoever. But the creditor, on some level, I'm sure does. And when they've been zeroed out through bankruptcy, if you're sending them a dispute, most of the time they're just either not going to respond, in which case the bureau will remove it from the credit report, or some of them have protocols that include an auto delete, meaning if they receive a dispute letter or any kind of a dispute, whether it's a letter or online or whatever, Um, there's this, I can't tell you what the percentage is, but it seems like a lot of the times those are accounts that get deleted. Now, is that going to help you in the grand scheme of things? Maybe. The thing about bankruptcy is it's a lot easier to recover credit wise. I'm talking purely credit score. It's a lot easier, and I've witnessed this over the last 10 plus years. It's a lot easier for people to recover credit wise from a bankruptcy than it is from charge offs and collections and everything like that. Largely because the debts are dead, there's zero balance. It's really not uncommon to see people's scores go up once they file bankruptcy because all the debt's gone. And one thing about bankruptcy that creditors know, and you'll notice this. Who is it? Versace? Yeah. So Versace, you'll probably see this when if you filed bankruptcy, is suddenly you'll start getting credit card offers in the mail, and you'll start getting. I mean, people are going to throw credit at you because they know there's two things that they know. Number one is that your debt's just been wiped out, so you got no debt anymore, and number two, you can't file bankruptcy again for 7 to 10 years. So you have to pay these new debts. So, and because of that, I've seen people file bankruptcy and then 18 to 24 months later have credit scores in the mid sevens, sometimes in the high sevens. And if the bankruptcy is years old, then high sevens is not uncommon, provided that you've done everything else right. You kept your nose clean. You didn't get back into heavy debt anymore. You're not abusing credit anymore. If you walk away, lesson learned, then it's not all that complicated to recover from a bankruptcy. So Versace, for you, the big thing is just to rebuild. You really got to rebuild, and you have to demonstrate that you can manage credit responsibly without getting in trouble. And for the first short while, the FICO and the Vantage scores are going to be very sensitive to things that you do. Like if you start maxing out your credit cards, or not even maxing them out, if you start overutilizing them over 20, 30%, and you have a bankruptcy on there, you're now in a different scorecard. You have a scorecard that includes having filed bankruptcy. So the way that you're scored is going to be slightly different. And it'll be a little punitive if you start, if you have balances on too many credit cards, you get too much credit too fast. So you got to just, go slow, build smartly, and you'll be fine. Okay. Scott, my audio is cutting out. Thanks for letting me know. I'm not sure why that is. Not much I can do about it, I don't think. I'm on my landline. Everything looks good. I mean, let's just try to work through it best we can. If I go completely out, then please let me know. Andre, if you were a victim of identity theft, are credit bureaus required to remove any derogatory items? Yeah, for sure. Okay, now, first of all, you need a police report. They don't believe, just giving you my experience, and I've heard this from multiple people who worked at the bureau level in dispute resolution, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that if somebody writes a dispute letter saying, "Hey, I'm a victim of identity theft," unless that's accompanied by a police report or the FTC affidavit, they're not going to believe you because everybody says that. So if you have the police report, the FTC affidavit, and by the way, you can get the FTC affidavit download in our back office in your template section, which you're going to find in the tutorials area. If that's truly what happened, then yeah, by law, they have a very short period of time. I forgot what the timeline is, but they do have to remove that stuff, and there are some serious penalties financially if they don't. Sean, okay, on credit Versio, how long does it take for the bankruptcy to get or to be removed from the report? I'm in round 2. So first of all, the assumption is that it will get removed, which you can't assume that. The only things that get removed from credit reports are things that are erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable. So if your bankruptcy really did happen and all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, then it's going to stay. Maybe you'll get lucky and get it deleted from one of the bureaus, maybe 2. Rarely do I see bankruptcies being removed from all 3 bureaus because there's not really a lot you can do, and anybody who tells you otherwise is probably trying to sell you something. But bankruptcies are one of those things where the pieces of data where the bureaus actively go out and get it. They go to LexisNexis, SageStream. There's other sources they go to get that information, and don't Don't waste your time trying to freeze those. That does not keep the bureaus from accessing your data. That keeps other potential creditors from accessing the data, but it doesn't break that connection that the bureaus have with these third-party companies. So don't waste your time. In fact, I'll tell you this, since we're on the subject, Sean. The biggest and best thing that you can do is to rebuild. If you file bankruptcy, you're already ahead of the game. Putting as much time between you and that bankruptcy is going to heal you more than anything else. Let's say you got the bankruptcy deleted from your credit report. Let's say you got it deleted from 2. Okay, great. It's still there. It's still in the public record. If you're going to buy anything substantial, especially a home, or if you're trying to get a business loan, you better believe that that underwriter is going to go look into the public record. They're going to see it. So, I mean, if you're just getting credit cards and car loan, okay, and they happen to pull a bureau that doesn't have the bankruptcy, okay, but they're going to see all the accounts included in bankruptcy. So that's still going to trigger that there's a bankruptcy somewhere. Because the chances of getting the bankruptcy deleted and all of the accounts that are included in bankruptcy, which there's going to be a notation in the payment status section, they're going to know it's a bankruptcy. It's one of those things where it's a public record, meaning public. It's hard. It's a very hard thing to hide from. And I wouldn't count on getting that removed to improve your credit situation. Like I don't know if you were on just maybe 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes at the most. What I was talking about is bankruptcies were one of my favorite types of clients to work with because they recover so quickly. Your debt's gone. You're going to be offered all kinds of new credit because you don't have any more debt. You can't file bankruptcy again for a long, long time, I think 7 to 10 years. So they know you're going to pay. So it's a great opportunity to rebuild. And that's really the thing to focus on. Okay, Eric, on my first round, my credit went up 12 points. Great. One of the things to keep in mind is the measurement of success when you're doing a dispute in a credit restoration program is not necessarily what your score does. Okay, your score is always going to be a grade based on all of the stuff that you have on your credit report. Now, I've seen people get 40, 50, 60% of the accounts on their credit report deleted and their score doesn't do anything. And their score doesn't do anything because they don't have any good credit or they have very limited good credit. So the example I've been given for years and years and years is imagine a hot air balloon. Okay, you got this hot air balloon, and connected to that hot air balloon is all these weights like sandbags. Okay, and the sandbags are the negative credit. So if you start cutting off these sandbags, but the balloon is just laying across the football field, everybody here has seen them blow up hot air balloons. It's kind of cool. They laid that big propane tank on the side and they blast all this hot air in there. So imagine a full hot air balloon. Okay, that represents a bunch of good credit. So if your balloon is lifting up and you're cutting away bad credit, the balloon's going to rise. Okay, your score is going to go up. But a lot of people who are in the credit repair process, they don't really have a lot of good credit. I didn't when I came to credit repair as a client over about 11 years ago, actually coming up on 11 years. So I still saw a little bit of a jump because I was doing other good things. I was reestablishing. I got credit cards. I had some people add me on as an authorized user. So it was a whole system of things that I was doing to increase my credit score. So just bear that in mind that deletions don't always equal a credit score increase. It's great that you got it, Eric. That's really cool. But now you want to maximize that. You want to maximize that by rebuilding if you need to. I don't know. I'm not looking at your credit report, obviously, so I don't know what's on there. But rebuild if you need to. Have people add you as an authorized user if that's the case, if you need to. If you already have credit, then focus on paying down your revolving debt. Don't worry about installment debt. Car loans, mortgage, personal loans, any kind of installment loan paying that off is not really going to benefit you all that much. A lot of your score is weighted on that revolving credit. Okay, Susan, a lot of good questions here. Thank you so much. Susan, getting ready to send round 2. What proof can I expect to see that proves they verified the accounts? That's a conversation between the data furnisher and the bureau. So they have an internal dialogue that they use. It's um, it's called eOscar. That's the software that they use. And the dispute process is worked in there. Now, when the bureau responds, they will tell you, or they should tell you, what the data furnisher did to verify that the information is correct. Sometimes they won't tell you. So uh, remember, like if something is truly wrong on there, if Credit Versio doesn't catch it and says it's an error, and you know it's wrong, then you might. This is where consumer protection attorneys come in. And the reason why I'm saying that, Susan, is that sometimes, if you see something in your credit report and it is materially wrong, you can look at it and say, this never happened, or what, this isn't me, or this wasn't my account. And I've been on these lives and I've talked to people who have been in that situation. They have, strangely, it usually has to do with like cell phone bills. And they're like, hey, I never had a Verizon account and it's not coming off. And if that's the case, sometimes you do need a consumer protection attorney to work on your behalf. And they don't charge you anything, by the way. If they look at your stuff, they look at your case and like, yeah, you've got a good case. They work pro bono. They get paid by the bureau. They get paid by the data furnisher, and there's built-in penalties for stuff like that. So don't shy away from like real legal help if you need it. Odd Hill, I don't know how to do a dispute. Is that what you're saying? Do you have a Credit Versio account? Did you go through your tutorial videos? Um, if it's no and no, then I would say get a Credit Versio account and watch your tutorial videos, and it'll show you. In fact, let me just bump right on over to Credit Versio right here. When you get in, the first thing, when you see that intro video, I think it's still me on there. It could just be my voice. The first thing that I tell everybody to do is go to your tutorial section right there and watch your 4 quick start videos. They're not very long. I think the longest one is 3, and I think it might be 4 minutes, maybe slightly over that. That's it. Everything you need to know, we could not have made it easier for you, is right there in the tutorial videos. It'll walk you through the whole thing. Okay, David, thanks. On bankruptcy for 2004. My goodness. Wait a second. It can't be 2004. A bankruptcy stays on for 10 years, Sean. That's like, what is that, 20, is that 19 years ago? Did you mean 2014? Because a Chapter 7 will stay on there for 10 years. 13 is 7. Check that date, Sean. That's suspect. Eric, late payments keeping me down. Okay, maybe. Let me give you some that'll probably blow your mind about late payments. Late payments are broken up into 2 sections. There's minor derog, major derog. A minor derogatory is a 30 and a 60. So if you got 30, 60, 30, 30, 30, maybe a 60, minor derog, you're going to recover from those pretty quickly. Major derog is 90-day late, 120 late. Maybe you'll see a 150 late from time to time, but usually those are collateralized loans like mortgage and maybe auto. Those might take 24 months to recover from. Typically, you can recover from those over a 24-month period of time. But if you're going to have anything on your credit report that time can heal and heal pretty quickly, it's late payment history. The stuff that's really going to jam you up are collection charge-offs. Those are the code for those. This is just a reference in the credit space, is called an 09. An 09, that's a Metro 2 code. It means total default, meaning that creditor went through a whole bunch of stuff, phone calls. They tried to get that person to pay. The person didn't pay, and they said, "Listen, we got to wash our hands. We're not in the debt collection business," and they charged the debt off. That's about the worst thing you can have on a credit report. Worse than bankruptcy. A bankruptcy, at least you can recover from it in 18 months, 24 months. Having unpaid collection charge-off, collection accounts, that's really rough on the credit score. Takes a while to recover from stuff like that. Let's see here. Mike, front door, back door, garage, and side or front. Is that your voice dictation picking up? You got like Amazon delivering or something? Okay, Travis. Just sent my first round of dispute letters off, and I hope this works. Yeah, I do too. Here's the great thing about Credit Versio. It's one of the reasons why I love this software. You don't know if what's going to happen. You really don't. And you'll hear me say this. I know I sound like a broken record. Accounts get deleted from credit reports. This is language right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. If they're erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable. That's your for the most part. Are the accounts you're disputing, do they fall into that category? You don't know. Unless you see something egregious like a material violation, or not, I shouldn't say violation. Something wrong that's on your account, something that's there that's not yours. Late payments when you never paid late. A collection charge-off when you had a payment arrangement that you honored. Things like that. Things that you can look at and go, whoa, this is just bananas. But when it comes to things that are, maybe this is right, maybe it's not right, I don't know. I'm going to exercise my legal right to dispute this. The burden of proof, the burden of performance is on the data furnisher themselves and also the bureaus. So you can dispute anything you want. You don't need to prove anything. They need to perform. Yeah. So, Sean, well, let me Sean, I saw your comment. I'll put it up here in a second. Let me just finish with Travis here. In fact, I'll put Travis back up. So really, and keep in mind, Travis, that this is a multi-round process. Round one is the shot across the bow. In fact, in the credit repair space, we always say that the real dispute process begins at round two, not round one. Because, and this has been my experience, 25,000 credit repair clients that I've worked with personally. This is before Credit Versio. I used to work for a very high-end, white glove, paid on results, very expensive credit repair company. That's my background. And, when we send out that first round of letters, people get really excited about it. Like nothing happened, or my score dropped 10 points, which is normal, or, normal score migration, or this happened or that happened, or they totally ignored me. I got no response whatsoever. That's fine. What happens a lot of time, this is my belief, is that when you send your first round dispute, the bureaus and data furnishers know that most people never follow up with a second round. They're going to get a response that says everything is reporting accurately, or the furnisher says that everything is reporting accurately, or has verified everything is reporting accurately. And a lot of times people doing it themselves are like, oh, okay, well, I gave it a shot. I gave it my college try, and they go away. Okay, maybe they give that response because they know most people are going to go away. I forgot what the stat was. There was a stat on this years ago. It was somewhere in the 80% range. So when you send that second round letter, and I'm talking to everybody, but Travis, especially you, when you send that second round letter, let's say you get a little low hanging fruit off that first dispute. Maybe nothing happens that first dispute. Round two is where you want to go with a suggested reason 100% of the time, because it's going to say, hey, this account's still there. I want you to explain to me how you were able to verify this. Not that they really owe you a big, long explanation, but it's sort of an intimidating follow-up. It tells them more than anything else that you are not going to go away quietly into the night. And then round three builds on top of round two, and then round four is a follow-up to round three. And then you might need a round five. So it's a multi-round process. If you look at the inner workings of really high-quality, high-end credit repair companies, and I happen to know, like I said, been doing this a long time, happen to know a lot of people who have these kinds of companies. This is a grinding technique. And the great thing about Credit Versio is it does it better than people who work for credit repair companies, because the software is better at reading credit reports and decision-making than people are. If you ever try to read a credit, a 30-page credit report and try to figure out what's up, I mean, I did it for a living for years and still on occasion do, and it's still hard, and I know exactly what I'm looking for. It's not hard for Credit Versio. It sees stuff right away. Sean, getting back to you. 2012. Yeah, look at the file date because it's over 10 years, Sean. I mean, that's your dispute. That would be very bizarre. Like, I don't, bureaus are really good at understanding when things should fall off. So I would look at that again. And then I'd make, if it like legit, if the file date was whatever March of something or April, whatever the month is, 2012, it doesn't matter. We're 2023 now. The only reason that that would still be on there is if you filed it in July of 2013. That means it'd have another month to go. And still the bureaus kind of delete things before that 10-year mark. All right. Well, Sean, that's an interesting case. Stan, hey family, on the 5th round to date, Credit Versio is the best, hands down. Scores jumped up tremendously. Nice. However, some collection companies do not want to provide information I'm requesting. It happens. Depends on what you're asking too, Stan. The more legit of a collection company that you're dealing with, meaning there's collection companies fall under two different categories. You have a debt assignees, and you have debt buyers. So what is it? What is the difference between the two? Let's say I'm a surgical center, and I'm not going to sell my debt. I'm a surgeon. My office, they're nurses and support staff. We don't chase people for money. So I'm going to take this. Let's say it's a $10,000 debt for something, some surgery. I'm going to assign it to a third-party collection company. What that means is I'm going to give them all the paperwork. And I'm going to give them all the authority and the approval. And I'm going to have an agreement in place with them. So the debt's $10,000. I'm going to tell them, hey, listen, if you can just get me 5, you can keep the rest, whatever you get. So that collection company is probably going to want to get $10,000, but they know they're in it for 5. Now, the challenge with dealing with these collection companies, they tend to have all of their ducks in line. Okay, they have all that paperwork. Now, fortunately, that's the minority of them. The bulk of collection companies like LVNV, like Midland, there's a ton of them out there. Those are your debt buyers, meaning they buy debts on spreadsheets. Sometimes they've got all the documentation, sometimes not. It just depends on how they acquired the debt. Okay. All right. I see a couple people talking to each other. Stand up again. Request validation proof. Keep sending statements, but no, they don't need to have signatures on them. That's a myth. The debt was sold. However, I truly don't remember this account asked for proof with signatures. Yeah, you can ask for their mom to deliver it with a tray of cookies. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, Stan. But there's certain things that, like, there's no expectation under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that they have to provide something with a wet signature. They don't. All they have to do is show a chain of ownership, meaning here's what that validation letter typically looks like. Usually it's the name of the collection company. And then they'll say, we're on behalf of this debt from, in the name of the original creditor who they're trying to collect for or who owned the debt before. We acquired this debt on such and such date. Here's the balance. Here's your account number, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they'll have your account information. If they've got that, that's the validation. That's all they need. There's no more heavier provision under the FDCPA that requires them to have anything more than that. I've seen it in the blogosphere, Stan, and YouTube, so-called credit experts say that ask them for this, ask them for the original application. You can ask them, but there's no allowance anywhere in the real life law that says they've got to provide that. There's no expectation that a third-party debt collector is going to have all of that. So just so everybody watching understands how relevant this is. I mean, I got in when I had John Alzheimer on here with me one time. We got into like a little debate. I don't even want to call it a debate. We're trying to correct somebody who came in and says you don't have to pay collections. It's a bad idea. That's a horrible idea to tell people they don't have to pay collections, or they don't need to pay attention or answer collection companies, or that they're not a threat. It just so happens that this is an area that I know quite a bit about. This includes having a good friend of mine who right here in town in Las Vegas, that is an attorney, and all he does is file lawsuits all day long for a big collection company. Collection companies, last I heard, this is years old data, they file about 44,000 lawsuits a year. They're not filing 44,000 lawsuits in this vacuum where they can't get paid. They're getting paid. They win most of these. They don't. My buddy who does this, he doesn't file a single lawsuit that he's going to lose because the case is right there in front of him. So the point to that is that collections are real debts. They do become your new creditor. That's the law. So dispute them. This is the credit repair side of me talking, and I got the real world, like, let's not mess with collection company side of me talking, because I've had hundreds of conversations with people on the phone during consultations, and they're crying. Not all hundreds of them, but some of them were like, I just got my bank account emptied out because of a collection that I ignored. I didn't think I needed to pay it. Now I have a judgment against me. You want to know how many times I've had that call? Lots of times I've had that call. So that's the pragmatic side, and the alarmist side, just letting you know, watching. And then there's the credit repair side is, okay, you have a legal right to dispute it. That's under the FDCPA and the FCRA. Dispute the account and see if they measure up to the law. Over 60% of collections that get disputed, not just on Credit Versio, but just by anybody competent, usually gets deleted. That's a high percentage. And the rest, the 40-some%, whatever that breakout number is, that's the stuff that usually can verify that it's a legit debt. Yeah, Stan, I don't mind telling the truth. I was young and dumb at one time. Yeah, listen, that's how I got into this business. I'm talking to you today because that was me long time ago. Started in the mid 400s, Credit Versio. I'm in the low 700s. Man, that's huge, Stan. Man, great job. I'm very proud of you. That right there was worth being on this live just to hear that. And of course, I mean, everybody else that's contributing, I appreciate you all. But I love hearing that stuff. That is such great news. It's all about rebuilding. It's all about, again, and this is sometimes not a popular subject matter, but one that obviously I know you understand and everybody on this live understands. But personal responsibility is a big thing in this space. And I think, I buried my head in the sand for years because I was just like, man, I don't even want to see my credit report. Because there was a time when my credit report was great. I used to own a bunch of property, did really well. Everything tanked. Yeah, Stan, yeah, exactly. I've said that. I've said that countless times in my career, is like, listen, the credit didn't get, wrecked overnight. It probably, a lot of stuff led up to it, and then it, took 30, 60, 90 days. I mean, a lot of things took place. So, your credit score is a grade. It's a grade of how well you manage your credit. It's a grade of how well you manage multiple types of credit. And you can't just pop up on the scenes like, okay, I got you. I got it now. I'm all done now. Let's give me a great credit score. I'm ready to go. You got to earn it over a period of time. The fact that you started with Credit Versio at 400s and now you're in the low 700s, that's awesome. I don't know how long it took you to do that, but that's impressive. Let's see. Sean says, yes, you have to be patient. Let Credit Versio do what it do. 100%. That's great. We might use that as a slogan. That's really good. Yeah, and just let 5 months stand. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when I was doing my credit repair, I seem to recall I was like mid fives, and I went to low sevens in about 6 months. So you did actually a little bit better than me. And then it took me another 2.5 years, maybe 3, to get into the low 8s. So right now I bounce around depending on what my credit card debt is, I bounce around in the high 7s, low 8s. I think 804 is the highest mine's ever been. But again, the reason for that is I still have for a 52-year-old guy, I still have a relatively young credit profile. I shouldn't, but having to start over again in 2009, 2010. I still have what's considered to be somewhat of a young file. Okay, where are we? Wow, we are at 52 minutes. I love it when I intend to do another demonstration and walkthrough of Credit Versio and I can't get to it because I've got a ton of great questions, and I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Glad we had a really good time. Got some great questions. Um, let's see, I'm not done. I have a goal because my family is depending on me. First step is to admit it and fix it. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, you're well on your way, and a low like when you get into the mid sevens, like anything above 740 is just extra. Like the best rates for just about everything, 740, 750. I think like the best mortgage rates are right around 760. I believe that's what my mortgage broker told me about a year ago. So, but you're almost there, Stan. You're doing a bang up job. Well done. I'm very proud of you. Okay, well that is it for me. That was fast, wasn't it? We're almost an hour on, and it was all Q&A, and everybody contributed excellently. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on a replay, or if you think about a question a little bit later on, just pop it in the chat, and I'll swing back around and answer it for you. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you next Wednesday. Take care, and until next time.